When we hear the word malware, it's easy to think of it as just this one big, scary thing. But the truth is, it's so much more than that. It's kind of like an evolving species, with a history that is way more dramatic and fascinating than you might think. So let's trace its journey, from what was basically a coding mistake all the way to a full-blown weapon of war. Well, it might sound like the start of a weird joke, but these three things are actually the most important milestones in the history of cyber threats. Each one represents a huge leap forward in both sophistication and, well, intent. They're the moments that transformed malware from a harmless prank into a tool of geopolitics. Let's dig in and see how they're all connected. All right, so our story starts not with some evil genius in a dark room, but with a simple mistake. We have to go way back to the very early days of the internet, a time when, believe it or not, the digital world was a much, much smaller and more trusting place. Okay, try to picture this. It's 1988. There's no Google, no social media, no World Wide Web as we know it. The internet is this tiny, tight-knit community of academics and researchers. I mean, security was basically an afterthought because everyone kind of knew each other. Trust was the default setting. It was really like a small digital village. Now, before we meet our accidental pioneer, it's really important to get what a worm is. See, unlike a virus, it doesn't need to latch onto another program to survive. It's a standalone piece of code that's designed to do one thing, and do it brilliantly: copy itself and spread across a network. And what's so wild is that the person who created this first major internet worm wasn't some criminal mastermind. He was a curious 23-year-old grad student, Robert Tappan Morris. He said he just wanted to see if he could build a little program that would creep slowly and secretly across the internet, really just to get a sense of how big it was. But this is where the whole experiment just went completely off the rails. See, Morris made a tiny but critical coding mistake. Instead of his worm checking if a computer was already infected and then just moving on, it would reinfect machines again and again and again, and each new copy just ate up more processing power until the computers just ground to a complete halt. His harmless little experiment had spiraled out of control big time. The power of this accidental worm was just staggering. In less than 24 hours, about 6,000 computers were hit. Now I know, that sounds like nothing today, right? But back then, that was 10% of the entire internet, brought to its knees by one student's coding bug. The aftermath was a massive wake-up call for everyone. The internet had sort of lost its innocence overnight. And Robert Morris? He became the very first person ever to be convicted for a cybercrime under a brand new law. It really was the end of the internet's age of trust. So let's fast forward. We're going to jump ahead 12 years to the year 2000, and the internet is no longer that quiet academic village. Oh no, it is a bustling global metropolis. And the next huge threat wouldn't exploit a bug in the software, but a bug in human nature, our own curiosity. I mean, the digital world had totally transformed. We went from just 60,000 computers to millions and millions online. Email was absolutely everywhere, connecting homes and businesses all over the globe. And this huge interconnected web was basically the perfect hunting ground for a new, much cleverer kind of worm. This simple little phrase, it appeared in millions of inboxes on May 4th, 2000. The subject line was just two words: I love you. It was one of the first and, honestly, one of the most successful examples of social engineering. It preyed on our fundamental desire to be wanted. I mean, come on, who wouldn't be curious about a secret love letter? But there was some really clever technical trickery behind this emotional bait. The attachment was made to look like a simple text file, because back then, Windows would automatically hide common file extensions. So people just saw .txt, but what was hidden was .vbs, which meant it was actually a script that could run on their computer. One click, and the trap was sprung. The damage was just astronomical. The worm would overwrite files on your computer, and then, this was the killer part, it would email itself to every single person in your address book. We're talking the Pentagon, the CIA, parliaments around the world. They all had to shut down their email systems. The estimated cost to fix everything was up to 15 times billion dollars. And here's the crazy twist. The guy who made it wasn't some evil financial criminal. He was a broke college student in the Philippines, Onel de Guzman. He claimed he never wanted to cause global chaos. He just built the worm to steal passwords so he could get online for free because he couldn't afford it. A really simple motive with absolutely devastating worldwide consequences. So we've gone from an accident to a social hack, and now the evolution takes its darkest turn yet. We land in 2010. Malware is no longer about just disruption or some petty theft. It's about to become a tool of war, a weapon that can cause actual physical destruction in the real world. Meet Stuxnet. Its target wasn't your email inbox. It was built to attack something incredibly specific: the industrial control systems running Iran's nuclear program. The goal wasn't to steal data or money. It was to physically sabotage the machines being used for uranium enrichment. Just like that, the line between a digital attack and a physical one was completely erased. So here's the puzzle. How do you attack a top-secret facility that's air-gapped, meaning it isn't even connected to the public internet for security? Turns out, you use the oldest trick in the book. Stuxnet was designed to spread through USB drives. All it took was one person, maybe a contractor, to plug one infected thumb drive into one computer inside that facility. And that's it. The worm was in. Once it was inside, Stuxnet started hunting for a very specific piece of hardware: the Siemens industrial controllers that basically act as the brains for the uranium centrifuges. The worm then secretly took command, and it made the centrifuges spin too fast and then too slow, over and over. This subtle manipulation caused intense physical stress, making an estimated 1,000 of these machines literally tear themselves apart over time. The sheer sophistication of Stuxnet was just unlike anything anyone had ever seen. To break through all the security, it used 4 different zero-day exploits. These are vulnerabilities that even the software makers don't know exist yet. It disguised itself using stolen security certificates from major companies to look legit, and it was so specific it would only activate if it found the exact centrifuge layout used at that one Iranian plant. For all these reasons, it's pretty much universally believed to be the creation of a nation-state, the world's first true digital weapon. So, from a grad student's experiment, to a trick that weaponized our emotions, to a tool of geopolitical sabotage, we've seen a pretty dramatic and, honestly, an accelerating evolution. Each of these steps was a total paradigm shift in how digital threats work. This timeline really puts it all into perspective, doesn't it? In just a little over 2 decades, we went from an accidental network crash to a worm that could fool millions of people with a simple email, and finally, to a piece of code that could actually cross over into the physical world and destroy critical infrastructure. And looking at them side by side like this, you can really see those key shifts. The intent went from just pure curiosity to theft, and then to outright physical sabotage. The targets blew up, from a small academic network to literally every email user on the planet, and then narrowed down to incredibly specific national infrastructure. Each worm left this powerful legacy, and each one totally changed our understanding of what malware was capable of. So we've seen malware learn to hide, to manipulate human emotion, and to literally break things in the real world. It has followed our own technological path, getting more complex and more integrated with our lives every step of the way. And you know what? This evolution is not over, which leaves us with one pretty critical question: what comes next?